Little girl's fear exposed, how a heroic cop's dog sparked an incredible, life-changing rescue. Ellie Thompson clutched her beloved dog, Jessie, as she twirled through the vibrant crowds at the annual community picnic. Laughter danced on the summer breeze, but for Ellie, there was an undercurrent of worry threading through her sunny day. She could feel it, like dark clouds shadowing the usually bright skies of her small town. Her father's unwelcome struggles loomed like a heavy fog in their home, stealing away the warmth and joy of family gatherings that once rang with laughter. Today, however, the sweet aroma of homemade pies and cotton candy beckoned her to lose herself in the moment. With Jessie's tail wagging enthusiastically, Ellie chased after the energetic dog, giggling as they raced past the booths, her laughter spilling into the air, drowning out her worries. But in a heartbeat, that happiness shattered. As Ellie tore around a food stand, she glanced back only to find her family gone. Panic gripped her small heart. The other jugglers of joy faded to a dull noise, replaced by her own frantic breathing. Ellie stood still, her world spiraling into a blur of familiar faces that suddenly felt foreign and intimidating. Back at the picnic grounds, the sounds of cheer morphed into anxious echoes in her mind. She bit her lip, tears spilling down her cheeks as fear twisted like a heavy knot in her stomach. Where were they? The weight of uncertainty crushed her tiny frame. But just then, a familiar voice broke through her confusion. Ellie! Ellie! Officer Ramirez, the beloved town cop, heard the whispers of trouble through his radio as he strolled through the festivities. With his loyal partner Max, a gentle giant of a dog with a heart just as big, he embarked on a mission that resonated deeply within him. Officer Ramirez wasn't simply there to uphold the law, he embodied hope and compassion, representing the best of small-town America. "Let us go find her, Max," he said, urgency in his voice as they moved through the crowds, scanning faces with determination. The twinkling lights of the fairground glimmered against his badge. Together, they transformed anxious searching into an unyielding promise. As Ellie sat sobbing on a nearby bench, her eyes wide with fear, Max bounded over, drawn by the scent of her distress. He stopped, tilting his head just so, his big brown eyes filled with unconditional love. Ellie knelt, the salty tears still fresh on her cheeks. In that moment of despair, a spark ignited. Max approached her cautiously, nuzzling her hand. The gentle nudges from the handsome dog were like rays of sunshine piercing through her dark clouds. As laughter poured back into her heart, Ellie felt an extraordinary bond blossom within their shared fear. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As the bell clangs, signaling the approaching end of the picnic, a wave of worry still mingles in the hearts of the townsfolk. They rallied around, pulling together in a beautiful display of heartwarming community spirit. Together, they extended their arms in search of not just Ellie, but for compassion, hope, and a united front against the specters of hardship. And as Officer Ramirez found Ellie, her family rushing to embrace her, the collective sigh of relief that spread through the crowd was warm yet bittersweet. The fear lingered in the backdrop, but so did the comfort of togetherness. It made Ellie wonder what could they all do to keep that light shining bright as the shadows threatened to creep back in. The thoughts wove through her mind as safety wrapped around her, leaving her eager to find out what tomorrow would bring. The next morning, the sun streamed through the window of Ellie's room, casting cheerful patterns on her wall. Everything felt fresh and new, as if overnight, worries had been tucked away under a warm blanket of hope. She was still sitting in the nest of Jessie's fur, reliving the moments from yesterday. The picnic, the fear of being alone, and the unexpected friendship with Max flickered like a movie reel in her head. Downstairs, voices clinked and clattered as her family shared breakfast. Ellie could hear her mom's laughter rising above the hum of their conversation. It felt good, and for a moment, she allowed herself to forget the shadows that had lurked so closely before. But as she joined them at the table, Ellie noticed the tension lining her father's forehead, a familiar furrow that tugged at her heart. "Morning, sweet pea," her mom said, beaming at her. "Ready for a big day?" Ellie nodded, but her eyes drifted to her dad, who sat quietly, poking at his food rather than eating. She remembered the warmth of Officer Ramirez's reassurance, the promise of safety he offered under the watchful gaze of Max, and the concern that hung thick in the air at the picnic. If she could help, she wanted to. After breakfast, Ellie decided she needed to do something. She grabbed Jessie's leash and headed out the front door. The sun sparkled like a million tiny jewels, and a breeze danced through the trees. She had to find Max. Maybe he could lead her to Officer Ramirez so she could thank him properly and maybe, just maybe, help her dad, too. Moving through the streets, Ellie felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness whirl within her. She finally arrived at the police station, a modest brick building that seemed to stand strong against the challenges of the world. Taking a deep breath, she walked inside, Jessie at her side. The walls adorned with pictures of past heroes and the sound of ringing phones created a unique comfort. "Ellie." Officer Ramirez called from the front desk. His face lit up as soon as he spotted her. What a lovely surprise. "Hi, Officer Ramirez. I wanted to see Max. He helped me yesterday and, I wanted to help, too." "Oh sweet Ellie, Max would love to see you. Let me just..." But before he finished his sentence, Max bounded into the room, his tail wagging fiercely, as if he knew he was about to be reunited with his new friend. Ellie's heart swelled. As she reached down to pet him, it felt as if all the love Max carried inside surged out to meet her. And in that moment, the world felt so right. Officer Ramirez smiled. "Max has been so excited to see you again. What's on your mind?" Ellie hesitated. I feel like we all need to help each other, especially my family. Can you help me think of something we can do? Something to make my dad happy?" The officer regarded her with warmth and seriousness, respect shimmering in his eyes. "That's a big request, and it's wonderful that you want to help your dad. We can definitely think of something together." As they began brainstorming, Ellie felt a new sense of purpose infuse her day. Ideas flowed like ripe apples from a well-tended tree. Friendly gestures, community support efforts, maybe even a small fundraiser at the next picnic to raise awareness and help families like hers. The more they talked, the more Ellie realized that hope wasn't just a fleeting feeling, it was an action, a promise kept. At that moment, her world expanded beyond herself, beyond her family, wrapping around the entire community. As she left the station with Max trotting by her side, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that these small ripples of hope she was trying to create might just grow into something bigger. But uncertainty still lingered. Would her efforts truly make a difference? Back home that evening, as she tucked herself into bed, the familiar question rose again, tinged with a hint of fear and excitement. What if her efforts wouldn't be enough? What if hope turned out to be harder to hold onto than she thought? With those thoughts swirling in her mind, she didn't realize the adventure she was about to embark on had only just begun. Tomorrow held the promise of change, and Ellie could feel it awaken inside her, a palpable thrill. And as she drifted off to sleep, a whisper of possibility filled the air. What difference could one little girl make in a world tangled with challenges? Would she have the courage to discover the answer? The morning light peeked through Ellie's window again, a familiar touch that brought with it fresh possibilities. Today felt different. She could hardly contain her excitement, bouncing out of bed and on her toes as a million ideas danced in her mind. Each thought reminded her of the commitment she made to help her dad and maybe even others around her. Once dressed, she found her parents sipping coffee in the kitchen. Her mom smiled knowingly, a glimmer of hope in her eyes, while her dad seemed a bit more relaxed today, though the furrow on his brow still hinted at hidden worries. "Good morning, sweet pea," her mom said, as Ellie filled her bowl with cereal. The moment felt cozy, like the sweetest hug. "Look at you, ready for action," her dad added, a faint smile breaking through. For a second, Ellie felt that her little plan could actually spark something good. After breakfast, Ellie and Jessie set out, the leash slipping through her fingers, a steady reminder of her determination. The fresh air felt brisk and invigorating. She thought of Max, how easy it had been to connect with him and Officer Ramirez. It filled her with a sense of purpose that made her heart flutter. At the police station, Ellie spotted Max waiting patiently near the entrance. He bounded toward her with an energy that made her laugh. "Hey, buddy!" she exclaimed, kneeling down to welcome him. Max licked her face, and in that moment, Ellie felt an indescribable warmth wrap around her heart. "Good to see you both," Officer Ramirez greeted with a grin. "So, what's the plan today?" Ellie took a deep breath. "I want to organize a community event. Something that will make people feel good. Maybe we could invite families to come and share their stories, kind of like a picnic but focused on hope and helping each other." The officer's eyes widened, impressed. "That sounds like a fantastic idea. We could set up booths, invite local businesses to donate, and even have activities for kids." Her heart raced. "What about a donation jar? For families who need help? We could raise money for food, clothes," and Officer Ramirez nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. You could call it Hope in Action. I think it'll make a difference." Ellie's resolve solidified. They spent hours planning as ideas flowed like water rushing down a stream. Each detail felt empowering. She could almost see the families coming together, enjoying laughter, and sharing stories of hope. As they worked, Ellie glanced out the window and caught sight of her dad passing by. His face had softened since breakfast, and seeing him there gave her strength. What if this day could change everything? What if her dad saw the community rallying around him? After the planning session, Ellie waved goodbye to Officer Ramirez and Max, feeling a mix of exhilaration and nerves bubbling in her stomach. Would her plan really bring a change? She didn't know the answer, but she felt bolder than ever. Back at home that evening, she approached her dad. He looked up from the newspaper with a tired smile. "You look excited, Ellie. What's on your mind?" With determination, she told him about the community event. "I think it could help us and other families too. I want to show everyone that we're not alone. That we can be stronger together." Her father's expression shifted. A flicker of hope returned to his eyes. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Ellie. You have a kind heart." Ellie's hope expanded, filled with dreams of a better tomorrow. As she went to bed that night, she realized that she had taken the first step, not just for herself and her dad, but for so many others. Yet, just as she began to feel the pull of sleep, an unsettling thought crept in. What if not everyone would want to share their stories? Would some people refuse to open up? And if they did, how could she handle the disappointment? The stirring questions lingered in the air, and in her heart, another layer of the adventure awaited her. What challenges would she face in bringing her vision to life? Would she gather courage when the fear of rejection nagged at her heart? The sun rose with a gentle glow, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange. Ellie woke up, her heart still racing from the day before. She rolled out of bed, anticipation coursing through her veins. Today was when everything would start falling into place. It was time to take her first steps toward making the community event a reality. After breakfast, Ellie felt a flutter of nerves in her stomach. "Mom, can you help me make flyers?" she asked, gripping the edge of the table tightly. She needed to spread the word, but doubt crept in. What if people didn't care? "Of course, sweetheart," her mother replied, her smile brightening the room. Together, they gathered supplies: colored paper, markers, and glue. As they crafted each flyer, Ellie poured her heart into the words, making sure to share her vision. She wrote about the importance of coming together, of sharing stories, and how they could uplift one another. That afternoon, she and Jessie set out to hang the flyers at local parks and shops. With each sticky tape placed and every passerby who glanced at them, Ellie's excitement mingled with apprehension. Would anyone actually come? Her legs felt weak at the thought of being rejected. On their way back home, Ellie bumped into Mrs. Johnson, her neighbor who often tended to her garden. "Hi, Ellie. What's all this?" Mrs. Johnson asked, pointing at the colorful flyer in Ellie's hand. With a mix of pride and nervousness, Ellie explained her plan for the community event. "I want to bring everyone together. Share stories. Laugh. Help families like ours." Mrs. Johnson's eyes brightened. "What a wonderful idea. You know, I'd love to bring some of my baked goods to share. It's always good to have delicious treats at events." Ellie's heart soared. "Really? Thank you. That would be great." Feeling encouraged, Ellie rushed home, her spirits higher than they had been in days. However, as she pulled the door open, a creeping doubt began to gnaw at her again. What if more people didn't want to participate? What if Mrs. Johnson was just being nice? That evening, she shared her growing excitement and her fears with her dad. "I talked to Mrs. Johnson, and she's going to bake. But what if other people don't care?" Her father looked thoughtful. "Ellie, many people want to support others, but sometimes they just need a little push. Your idea is beautiful, and you may be surprised by how many will want to join in." Ellie absorbed her dad's words, feeling that familiar warmth of hope rush back. Maybe she wasn't alone in this after all. Maybe the community truly did want to come together. The next morning, Ellie decided she needed help spreading the word. They had created something special, she could feel it. At school, she took a deep breath and stood before her classmates. "Hey everyone. I'm planning a community event called Hope in Action. It will be really fun, and I want you all to come and help." Some kids looked curious, while others shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting away. Ellie's heart trembled. "We can work together to make our neighborhood stronger." Their reactions were mixed. Some laughed, but others whispered to one another. The laughter stung, and she fought back tears, wondering if she had made a mistake. What was she thinking? As the bell rang, she turned to leave, feeling defeated. Just when she thought all hope was lost, a girl named Sarah approached her. "I think what you're doing is cool. I'd like to help." Ellie's heart skipped. "Really? You would?" "Yeah. I'll talk to my parents too." And just like that, a spark ignited within her once again. But deep down, the lingering doubt still whispered in her ear. What if no one else joined Sarah? What if the event ended up being a flop? With renewed determination, she picked up her phone, shaking off the uncertainty. She would keep pushing. But as her finger hovered over the dial, another sinking worry took root. What if nobody came at all? Would she be able to face the disappointment? The questions buzzed in her mind as she resolved to reach out to more friends, but with each moment, uncertainty clung to her. She needed courage, a bit of magic to carry her forward. What else would she discover as she tried to rally the community in this way? Would Ellie tap into her inner strength and rally others to join her cause? The sun climbed higher in the sky, casting its warm rays into Ellie's room. She sat on her bed, a notebook open before her, trying to map out her plan. Her mind raced with possibilities, the excitement and fear swirling together like a storm. She needed to get the word out about Hope in Action, and quickly. The date was approaching, and she could feel the weight of time pressing down like a heavy blanket. "Okay, Ellie," deep breath, she whispered to herself. She had just the idea. Social media. If she could create a quick post and maybe even a small video, it might reach more kids. She grabbed her phone and opened her favorite app, her heart pounding as she began to type. "Hey everyone. I'm planning something special for our community, a fun event called Hope in Action. Let us come together to share stories and support each other. Who's in? Her finger hesitated above the post button. What if no one responded? What if her classmates made fun of her again? Her heart dropped at the thought, but she pressed the button anyway. There was no turning back now. As the days passed, Ellie felt a mix of anticipation and dread. She watched her notification bell like a hawk, each ping sending a jolt through her. At first, it was just a few likes. Encouraging, but not enough. Then, as she scrolled one evening, her heart raced as new comments appeared. "This is cool, Ellie. And I'll bring my guitar." Flooded the screen. Ellie clapped her hands together, yes. She could hardly contain her excitement. Maybe this was really happening. Later that evening, she shared the good news with her parents during dinner. People are starting to get excited. Kids want to help, they want to bring snacks and games. "Sweetheart, you're doing amazing work," her mom said, beaming. "You're creating something that will bring joy to everyone." Ellie felt the warmth of her mother's words, but in the back of her mind, the nagging worry still lingered. What if not enough people showed up? The next morning, she decided to take it one step further. She gathered Jessie and Sarah during lunch at school. "We need to do something more to keep the momentum going. What about a little pep rally this Friday? We can get everyone hyped for the event." Sarah's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That's a great idea. We can even make some posters." "Yes. Let us get our fellow classmates involved." "I don't want to do this alone," Ellie said. With renewed fervor, they spent the afternoon brainstorming ideas. Laughter filled the space as they sketched posters and created catchy slogans. Jessie suggested, "How about make a change, be the change?" It's catchy. Ellie grinned, the doubts that had haunted her fading into the background for a moment. As the girls bonded over their creativity, she felt a sense of empowerment growing, but then, as Ellie walked home later that day, the worries crept back in. What if all their efforts didn't pan out? What if nobody turned up to the pep rally? The anxiety tightened in her chest, and she felt a hint of defeat trying to seep in. That night, unable to shake the feeling, she confided in her dad again. "What if the pep rally flops? I'm scared no one will care." Her dad looked her in the eye, the warmth in his voice steadying her. "It's brave to put yourself out there, Ellie. Remember, even if just a few people show up, that's still a victory. Change starts small, and your courage is what will inspire others." His words wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. She needed to harness that courage. As she settled in for the night, a small flicker of hope ignited within her. She picked up her phone once more, scrolling through the event page. A wave of happiness washed over her as she saw how many people had shown interest. Still, there was that remaining doubt whispering in her mind. What would happen at the pep rally? Would it be a success or another disappointment? As she closed her eyes, a thought nagged at her, a thought that maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning of a bigger journey. What awaited Ellie when she faced the crowd? Would her dreams of bringing the community together come to life, or would she face a new challenge that could turn everything upside down? Ellie stood in front of the mirror the next morning, smoothing her hair down, trying to silence the storm of anxiety swirling in her mind. The day of the pep rally had finally arrived, but her stomach felt like a whirlwind of butterflies. "You've got this," she whispered to her reflection, forcing herself to smile. At school, the atmosphere buzzed with the energy of an unusual excitement. Posters plastered on the walls showcased her and her friends' designs, vibrant colors declaring, "Hope in action," and "Make a change, be the change." She felt a warm flush of pride at the sight of her work displayed, but doubt still gnawed at the edges of her heart. As she walked through the hall, Ellie was surprised by the number of kids who stopped her to chat about the event. "I can't wait for the pep rally," one of her classmates said, giving her a thumbs up. "This is going to be epic." Others joined in with similar words of encouragement. When the final bell rang, Ellie and her friends gathered their supplies and headed outside, where the pep rally was set to take place. The schoolyard had been decorated with balloons and streamers, and a small stage stood ready for speakers. Ellie took a deep breath, trying to ignore the fit of nerves that tightened around her chest. As the crowd began to form, Ellie's heart raced. She caught sight of her classmates arriving with guitars, snacks, and games. People were indeed here for hope in action. Each familiar face ignited a flicker of excitement within her, overshadowing her fears. If only for a moment. Jessie jumped up to the microphone first, her voice ringing out across the yard. "Who's ready for some fun?" The crowd roared in response, and Ellie felt a rush of adrenaline. This was happening. She stepped up to the stage, her palms sweaty against the microphone. "Thank you all for coming. This event means so much to me," she began, her heart pounding loudly in her ears. "Together, we can support each other and make our community a better place." But just as she settled into her groove, Ellie noticed a group of students standing at the back, whispering amongst themselves. A familiar sense of dread crept back in. What were they saying? Were they laughing at her? She stumbled on her words, struggling to keep her composure. Let us get started with the first activity," she announced, forcing a smile as she gestured to Jessie and Sarah. The two jumped into a lively game, their energy infectious, and slowly the crowd loosened up. Kids laughed and cheered, and Ellie felt the warmth of their collective joy washing over her. Then, there was a lull, a moment where the laughter faded and her heart raced once more. It was time to share personal stories, to connect on a deeper level. Ellie stood at the forefront, battling the tightening in her throat. What if her story fell flat? Or worse, what if it didn't resonate at all? But then, a gust of courage propelled her forward. "You guys, I want to share something personal." Her voice trembled, but she pressed on, sharing her experience of feeling alone and how she found strength in community. The reaction was instantaneous. Faces turned to her, wide-eyed, and slowly, hands began to raise. Classmates began to share snippets of their stories too, little pieces of themselves that had once been hidden away. The honesty and vulnerability made Ellie's heart swell. However, in that moment of connection, the same group at the back began to move toward her. Fear gripped her heart again. Were they about to ruin everything? Would they mock her in front of everyone? But to her surprise, one of them stepped forward. "Hey, I just wanted to say I relate to what you said. It meant a lot." A wave of unexpected relief washed over Ellie. She realized that in sharing her fears, she ignited courage in others, even those she least expected. The journey of hope in action had shifted from an idea to an undeniable movement, but Ellie didn't know yet how far it would go. As the conversations flowed, she couldn't shake anew, wondering what could happen if this momentum didn't stop here. Would it challenge even more hearts to rise? Just as laughter echoed again in the air, a figure in uniform strode over, commanding attention. Ellie's pulse quickened. What could this mean? Would his presence bring hardship, or perhaps an opportunity for even greater change? The crowd's laughter faded as the officer stepped closer, an air of authority surrounding him. Ellie felt her heart race again, not out of fear this time, but from curiosity. Was he here to shut them down? Was the pep rally deemed too loud or too disruptive? The officer cleared his throat, and Ellie held her breath as he spoke into a nearby mic. "I've been hearing a lot of excitement coming from this area, and that's great to see. But let us make sure we keep things safe and fun. We are all about community here." A collective sigh of relief erupted from the crowd. Ellie smiled, her heart warming at the unexpected support. The officer continued, glowing with a comforting smile. "Also, I brought my partner with me today." From behind him, a joyful golden retriever bounded forward, tail wagging like a banner of joy. Gasps filled the air as the dog leapt with playful energy, drawing the attention and laughter of everyone. Ellie laughed, her earlier fears slipping away, replaced by the sheer delight of the dog's antics. "Meet Max," the officer announced proudly. He's not just a great dog, he's a part of our community outreach program. He's here to remind us all that positivity brings us together. Ellie felt a rush of inspiration. Max, who was now circling around the feet of the children, was a perfect symbol of unity. She could see how he transformed the moment, an adorable reminder of joy in the midst of uncertainty, just like the very event they were celebrating. "Why don't we have some fun with Max?" the officer suggested, eyes sparkling. "I'm sure he'd love some good games. Who wants to join him?" Ellie looked around as hands shot up in the air, each child eager to interact with the four-legged ambassador of happiness. It was as if the officer had ignited a new level of enthusiasm. Ellie's apprehensions faded further, seeing her classmates genuinely light up. "Come on, everyone. Let us form a line and take turns to play fetch with Max," she called out, excitement tinging her voice. As the crowd surged forward, she felt electrified by the collective spirit. A simple dog was bridging conversations, sparking smiles, and encouraging connections. One by one, kids laughed as they threw a squeaky ball, Max racing after it like a superhero. Ellie couldn't help but join in, laughing as the dog returned, tail wagging wildly while he dropped the toy at her feet, as if demanding another round. Watching her classmates burst with joy reminded Ellie of why they had gathered. It wasn't just about sharing their stories, but about creating a sense of belonging. The crowd was no longer separate individuals, they had transformed into a community united against loneliness, a family celebrating shared experiences. As the games rolled on, Ellie found herself able to breathe freely for the first time that day. She turned her gaze back to the officer, who was chatting with a couple of students. Maybe this was the moment, a new chapter for her movement to inspire change. Suddenly, she caught a glimpse of the familiar faces that had earlier been whispering. But now, they were smiling, participating, and laughing along with the rest. Fueled by newfound confidence, Ellie stepped back up to the microphone. "Can we get a group photo with Max? Let us send this to our school as social media. Show everyone what hope in action really means." Cheers erupted, and as everyone gathered around, Ellie knew that this wasn't just an event anymore, it was a message of hope spreading beyond their school, reaching deeper into their community. The officer stepped next to her, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Great idea, Ellie. You're a natural leader." He beamed, the warmth of his encouragement lighting a fire within her. Just as the camera flashed, Ellie tilted her head to the side, brimming with hope and excitement. Would their story ripple beyond this moment? Could they cultivate this energy into something bigger? But lying under all that hope was one nagging question: what if it all came crashing down suddenly? Would they be ready to face whatever came next? A new uncertainty began to whisper in the back of her mind, leaving Ellie to wonder, as the crowd cheered louder around her. As the crowd began to disperse, laughter still echoing in the air, Ellie felt a strange mix of exhilaration and vulnerability. The energy she had stirred started to diffuse, her heart still racing as she replayed the last few moments in her mind. The photo, the cheers, the joy were all palpable, yet a flicker of doubt crept back in. The officer had joined the children in their playful frenzy, tossing the ball for Max, who leaped energetically, his golden mane shimmering in the sunlight. Ellie watched him, thinking how easily he'd captured the spirit of the day with just a wag of his tail. But while the dog thrived on interaction and joy, Ellie felt her heart weighed down with uncertainty. What now? She murmured to herself, stepping back from the crowd. Her gaze landed on her classmates, on their smiling faces, and she wondered if she could maintain this energy, this sense of community. Suddenly, she saw Mira off to the side, sitting alone on a bench, her expression subdued. Ellie's heart sank. Somehow, she knew Mira needed this moment as much as anyone, perhaps even more, but it didn't seem to register. The laughter and joy around her had created a stark contrast to the somber look on her friend's face. The officer noticed this too. He knelt down next to Mira, Max trailing beside him, and Ellie felt a twinge of hope as she observed their interaction. "Hey there, the officer said softly. Want to give Max a hug? Mira looked up, hesitation knitting her brow. Ellie felt a spark of determination. If she could rally everyone with a dog, surely she could reach out to her friend. Taking a deep breath, Ellie approached, her heart pounding. Mira, you should join us. Max loves hugs. Mira's lips twitched, almost forming a smile, but she didn't move. Ellie felt a wave of concern wash over her. She remembered the days of silence and isolation, and knew how easy it was to slip back into that mindset. What if, Ellie uttered, wrapping her arms around herself as she fought to articulate her thoughts, what if we did something special for those who need a bit more encouragement? Like a club, or a team, or even just a weekly meetup. The officer smiled at Ellie, impressed with her initiative. I think that's a great idea. We could start a group focusing on the things you love, maybe making crafts, volunteering, or training dogs like Max. Ellie's eyes sparkled at the prospect. There was power in sharing. It could be an escape, a safe harbor. A way to lift others like Mira. Would you want to help us, Mira? Ellie asked, her voice gentle yet hopeful. They all waited. Ellie felt the weight of the moment, a chance not just for Mira, but for everyone in their school seeking companionship. Mira met Ellie's gaze, her eyes shimmering with possibilities. Slowly, she stood, a hesitant smile creeping onto her lips. I think I'd do like that. The officer stood back, allowing the girls a moment. The atmosphere began to shift, like the clouds parting to allow sunlight through. As Ellie saw Mira's uncertainty ease into genuine excitement, her heart swelled. But just before they could celebrate this subtle victory, Ellie caught a glimpse of something in the distance. Movement, almost chaotic, swept through the corner of her eye. A car peeled too closely down the road where they had gathered, and suddenly, sirens pierced the air. Ellie's heart dropped. What was happening? She turned to see worried expressions surfacing again in the crowd. Something was stirring, a threat creeping into their space, smashing against their newfound hope. As sirens blared closer, Ellie felt the weight of the world in her chest. Would their moment of joy shatter once more? Would the community they had just begun to cultivate be put to the test against the chaos approaching? Ellie braced herself. The adventure was far from over. Would they band together when it mattered most? The sound of sirens cut through the laughter like a knife, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Ellie's heart raced, a mix of fear and adrenaline coursing through her veins. She turned to see the crowd's playful energy dissolve into tension, as people began to murmur in low voices, glancing toward the approaching crisis. What's happening? Mira asked, her calm exterior cracking slightly. I don't know, Ellie replied, trying to sound braver than she felt. The officer still standing close, Max at his side, seemed to sense the shift in the atmosphere. His earlier enthusiasm had evaporated, replaced by an air of authority that had Ellie holding her breath. As the police car screeched to a halt, the officer's demeanor changed. He hurried towards the car, talking into his radio as he walked, his brow furrowed in concern. Max remained by his side, tail still wagging but seemingly attuned to his owner's distress. Ellie's breath quickened. She looked around, searching for any signs of what was unfolding. It felt like the ground beneath her shook with uncertainty, her previous sense of purpose flickering dangerously. What if it's bad? Mira whispered, her eyes darting toward the commotion. Anti-anxiety questions bombarded Ellie's mind. Was someone hurt? What if it was someone they knew? The prospect of losing the connection they had just begun to build felt unbearable. Hey, Ellie said, gripping Mira's arm gently. Let us wait and see. Whatever it is, we can handle it together. As they observed, more officers arrived, adding to the gathering near the police car. Then, a figure stepped out, a woman, wild-eyed, her clothes disheveled, holding tightly to a child who looked barely 6. The child's face was streaked with tears, trembling as he clung to his mother. A gasp rippled through the onlookers, as concerned faces leaned in, not wanting to intrude, yet unable to turn away. "What happened?" someone shouted, breaking the fraught silence. The woman's voice trembled as she explained. "We were in a car accident. I didn't know. I thought I lost him." Her eyes darted around the crowd, searching for connection, for reassurance. Ellie's heart sank. This was bigger than any club or meetup they could create. In an instant, their small world worries vanished. This was real life, raw and heartbreaking. The sirens had pulled back the curtain on something far darker, but then, Max's tail began to wag again. The officer, showing true grace under pressure, knelt beside the distraught mother, his voice deep yet soothing. "You're safe now. We're going to take care of you both." Ellie felt a surge of warmth. This was what community meant. It wasn't just about sharing joy, it was coming together in the face of fear. She looked at Mira, and for the first time, she saw a fire spark in her friend's eyes, understanding, determination. "We need to help," Mira said, a new strength evident in her tone. Ellie nodded, her heart pounding anew, but this time with purpose. "What can we do?" Just then, the child looked up at Max, crying softly. The officer noticed and smiled. "Max is a good boy. He loves when kids hug him." Before she could think twice, Ellie stepped towards the officer and the child. "Would you like to meet him?" she asked gently, kneeling so she was eye level with the little one. As the boy sniffed and then slowly nodded, Ellie whispered, "Let us bring some light, okay?" In that moment, as the officer guided Max closer, Ellie's heart began to heal. They could bring hope into this pain, even if just for a moment, the kind of hope they fought for themselves. As laughter began to bubble back into the scene, Ellie felt the tension ease. They were stronger together, even in the darkest times. But the sound of another siren interrupted her thoughts. Was there more trouble ahead? Ellie held her breath, preparing for whatever storm might come next. Would the courage they had gathered carry them through the challenges immediately ahead? The sirens wailed, and a rush of somber energy enveloped the crowd. Ellie could feel her heart race like a drum pounding in her chest. But there was something different this time, an undercurrent of strength sparked by everyone gathering around to support the grieving mother and her little boy. As Max gently nudged the child with his wet nose, the little boy giggled through tears, warmth radiating through the chill of panic. It was a small ripple of hope. In that moment, laughter broke through a wall of fear. Ellie stepped closer, her voice soft yet steady. "It's okay to feel scared. We're all here for you," she whispered, meeting the child's eyes, which flickered with uncertainty and then something brighter, trust. The boy reached out cautiously for Max, and the dog responded with a wag of joy, brushing his furry side against the child's hand. "See? Max is your friend now," Ellie continued, the realization dawning on her, filling her with purpose. Together, they were stronger, just like her community, just like the spirit of her Hope in Action initiative. "Let us make sure you both have what you need. Everyone deserves to feel safe and loved." The officer nodded, smiling appreciatively at Ellie. The crowd shifted closer, whispers of encouragement weaving through the air. Mira stood beside her, looking determined. "We should set up a space, maybe snacks or fun activities for kids caught in the middle of uncertainty," she suggested, warmth flooding through Ellie. "Yes!" Ellie exclaimed, a vision igniting in her mind. "We can create a safe zone right here, for kids and their families. They shouldn't have to feel alone." The idea surged with energy, echoing through her thoughts like a heart-thumping anthem. That encouragement was contagious. Inspired, people began to step forward, offering whatever they had. A neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, pulled out a basket of cookies. A father scooped his children up, declaring, "Let us have a cookie decorating contest right here." Laughter spilled back into the atmosphere like flowers blooming after a cold winter. The officer remained nearby, guiding families to a place of comfort as Max delighted the little boy with games and affection. Hope blossomed faster than anyone could imagine as Ellie saw new connections forming. Fear began to fade under the warmth of shared smiles and the sounds of laughter. As cookies were decorated with colors of every hue, Ellie took a breath, grounding herself in the present moment. Every creased brow and tear-streaked face began to soften. This was it. This was community. People were joining hands, turning moments of anguish into bursts of joy and solidarity. With Mira at her side, they started to organize games, inviting everyone to join in. Kids ran around tossing balloons and sparking laughter. Parents exchanged stories, building the warmth and strength Ellie had envisioned. The sirens blended into the background noise, as love took hold, stemming from the chaos, when the little boy, now smiling with a cookie in hand, turned to Ellie and said, "Thank you for making this better." Her heart fluttered. "You're stronger than you know," she replied softly, a smile spreading wide. As time marched on, the event gracefully evolved. They created a support group under that beautiful commitment they had locked eyes upon. The officer offered his help as a liaison, emphasizing that he'd be there for the families. Ellie looked around, soaking in the happiness radiating from the people she'd grown to love in such a short span. The day ended with laughter echoing through the fading sunlight, reminding Ellie of how united they had become. She thought back to her earlier fears about the community not rallying together. Those worries melted away like ice on a sunny day. Walking home, Jessie trotting beside her, Ellie felt a renewed sense of belonging. There would always be struggles, shadows that could creep in, but the light would always return. In the end, it was the spirit of community shining through moments of fear that brought real transformation. She smiled to herself, realizing she had become not just a little girl seeking connections, but a beacon of strength for herself and others. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but whatever came, she knew they would face it together. In the very marrow of her heart, Ellie cradled the message she wished everyone could hear: we are stronger together. We can light up the darkness. Now, it's time for you to be a part of this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support.